she accidentally sent me a screenshot of her FaceTime with another man. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel Aura Zone Stories. Today we have a story where this man surprisingly found his wife's secret that he couldn't believe. Let's see how this story ended. I am absolutely devastated. I've been with my wife now for 10 years, married for 3. We have an amazing 8-year-old girl, and just had another baby. On my way home from picking up my daughter from a friend's pool party, my wife accidentally sent me a screenshot of her FaceTime with another man. I instantly recognized him. When I got home, I confronted her. She explained it was an Instagram pocket dial, and she instantly hung up out of embarrassment and took a screenshot in the process. This was all a lie. I debunked this. After questioning her, come to find out she was FaceTiming this guy and caught by sending me that picture entirely. She's been talking with this guy, who is also married for around 11 months. So, I contacted his wife and let her know my wife and her husband have been hiding their conversations from us. After talking more with his wife, she discovered he was getting a hotel room down the street from our house all the time. She pulled this info up on their Marriott Points account. I called him and got him to come clean. He has been doing bedroom activity with my wife for months at a hotel during the day. My wife would drop off my daughter at school, go meet with him. Then she come home and act like nothing happened. I've since confronted her and she's trying to get me to stay. The worst part is, our newborn baby may not be mine. They have been having bedroom activity throughout her entire pregnancy. I got a paternity test today and should know by Friday the outcome. I want to divorce my wife. She has absolutely broken my heart and ruined this family. My oldest daughter has no idea, and I don't plan on telling her, so they can keep a healthy relationship. My wife has never cheated before. I treat her like a queen. We are happy and love our relationship. Or so I thought. If she had never sent me that screenshot by mistake, I'd have never known. The worst part is, I have no idea why she would ruin our family and marriage. I give her my all. I worked hard for her and the girls. I'm broken. Baby is mine. They were meeting at multiple hotels, parking lots, behind buildings. She talked to him way more than she said she did. I've been having a few panic attacks from time to time. Woke up extremely angry today. Our newborn has been sick, so my wife and I have had to be in a hospital room together for the past week. I've been leaving during the day. Didn't even go yesterday, and a bit today. As much as I want to be there for my daughter, it's hard for me to be in that room without getting extremely angry. I can't look at my baby girl without thinking about her being inside the womb while they had bedroom activity. It's just a nightmare. I'm having her get a lie detector. I'm gonna go to personal counseling for some PTSD issues. But all in all, I know what I need to do. So on this last September 19th, my oldest daughter's birthday, I found out my wife had been cheating on me while pregnant with our now 11-month-old, that I know of, who was born 6 days before my oldest birthday. Now, when I found out, obviously it was a complete disaster. My life came to a screeching halt, and I became very depressed. I had no idea what I was going to do, or how I was going to make my way out of this mess. I couldn't move out of the house right away because of our baby. So for the first month or two, we stayed under the same roof. This obviously didn't work, so we separated. When I was home with the girls, she was not to be there and vice versa. This worked for a brief moment in time, until she started refusing to leave. I then realized that in order for me to be a good dad, I need to leave her and file for divorce. So I did just that. I divorced her. Now, the mediation went terribly. I lost just about everything. So now I'm starting over from scratch as a single dad. And I can't tell you how freeing it really is to be away from someone so toxic. She still tries to make my life awful. Whether it's canceling time, she'll watch the girls during my work days. She still doesn't work, so instead of sending them to daycare, they stay with her during my work hours. Or making false accusations, gaslighting tactics, narcissistic behavior. It's endless. As of last week, I requested that we use some kind of app for communication between her and I. Also bought my oldest daughter a phone for texting and calling me and her mom when she needs to talk to us. Again, to limit my communication with my ex. As far as I know, she is not communicating with her affair partner. The affair partner's wife divorced him and is now engaged to someone else already. I'm still praying I run into him at some point, but that is yet to happen. Probably for the better. But my ex still not working, 5th year in a row, living off alimony and child support. Her free time is spent making sympathy TikToks looking for attention, painting a false narrative to hundreds of strangers in hopes that she doesn't look like the monster that she is. My oldest daughter is doing good. She still struggles with the fact we're divorced, but she does know it's not my fault. Before separating, we told her it was her mom's fault. My youngest daughter and I have now built a very strong bond. As I told some of you, it was very hard for me at first, because I didn't really know if she was mine. But she was also part of the affair, unfortunately. That was the hardest part for me, not being able to bond with my daughter, because all I could think about was my wife being pregnant with her, while cheating on me in a trucker motel room. I hope in the future that it gets better. Right now, I'm in the stage of dealing with a true narcissist is trying to cut me down at any chance she gets. However, if any of you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. And if you're going through something like this, please reach out. I'll do the best I can to help you. His wife is clearly a narcissist, always needing attention whether it's good or bad, taking so much away from him and still drags him through the mud, all because she couldn't have her way with him. I hope she gets what's coming to her. I hope he and his daughters are doing well without her. The affair partner's wife is engaged already. Sounds really odd. Your first post has a lot of never cheated before. We are happy and love our relationship. Treat her like a queen, etc. I know you made those statements while in duress, but in less than a year your ex has become a hateful and vengeful person against you and you her. You also said you immediately recognized him, a close friend. I make these observances to say this. You and your oldest daughter need individual counseling by a trained therapist skilled in trauma. I'm glad you are not wallowing in self-pity and defending yourself. Good job. At some point, you and your ex will have to reach some sort of agreement to co-parent effectively and support each other for the sake of your children. My boyfriend wanted to go on a vacation this summer to his mom's friend's house in Hawaii with me and his two best friends, 25 male and 29 female. We had been planning on this all spring, and at some point, 25 male opted out of the trip, leaving just the 3 of us. For context, my boyfriend and I have been going out since November, and it's been serious. We had and still have been talking about moving in together, and he has said, and I agree, that this is a long-term situation, and that we are in it for good. In early June, once 25 male unexpectedly dropped out of the trip, 29 female called my boyfriend and told him that now that it was just the 3 of us, she didn't feel comfortable with me going on the trip since she didn't know me that well and she didn't want to be a third wheel. She said that if I were to go, she wouldn't go on the trip. Without telling me that this was happening, they changed the plans and made it a trip just the 2 of them, and they changed the location to a beach in Costa Rica. I was trying to figure out when to ask for time off this summer and hadn't heard news about the plans, so I asked my boyfriend which week in August I should be setting aside for the Hawaii trip. He let me know that, actually, he had talked to his friend and that she didn't want to go if I were going, so he was going to go alone with her to Costa Rica. He said that we could go another week later, maybe to Mexico City or something. I was upset and tried to talk with him about how the situation made me feel, especially since this wasn't a case of a separate trip being set up ahead of time. This was a case of me being invited and then uninvited from a week-long tropical vacation with a girlfriend of his who I had never met before. We eventually decided to do a trip together to Copenhagen, which we have both wanted to visit as some sort of compensation. I also asked to meet her so that I could feel more comfortable with the trip. We spent the 4th of July going to see her and her boyfriend in the city where they live, and although it was nice to put a face to a name, it was ultimately a very cold trip, and she was not at all welcoming to me. My boyfriend remarked on how unfriendly she was to both of us, he thought, and said that he was surprised that she didn't act warmly to me. I went out of my way to try get to know her and her boyfriend. I'm very outgoing and friendly, and usually this would be easy, but it didn't really click even after several days. They were somewhat cold to each other as well. They bickered a little bit about their future and his own 3-week trip without her. That was scheduled for the same time as their trip. This had been scheduled before ours had. This had been my effort to feel better about the trip, so I told my boyfriend that I still didn't feel comfortable with things, and that I was feeling insulted by the way that it was handled. I had tried to make things smooth between all of us, and I asked him to please come up with something that could help me feel better about the trip. On a visit to his family, they asked about the trip, and they were all shocked that he would have arranged it this way, and let me know that they would have been furious if they were in my position, which triggered a fight in which I asked him to please help come up with a strategy to make me feel better and more secure about them going together without me. He said that he would never do this kind of thing again, which feels like not much to offer since this is kind of a once-in-a-lifetime trip to begin with. He kind of offered to not go on the trip, but he had already paid for the tickets and made arrangements, and I didn't want to stop their trip and be resented by both him and his best friend. He asked me to give him ideas of how to make me feel better and wanted me to just tell him what to do, and stalled until it was finally the day of the trip. He bought me a bag of peanut butter cups, and I drove the two of them to the airport. I feel so disregarded and disrespected in this situation. I want to break up with him, but I don't want to burn up something that has been really good. I was really upset the day I dropped him off, and he was texting me, but I wasn't responding. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, but I didn't want to do anything at all in the state I was in. I waited until the next day, and then I sent him a thought-out text, letting him know that I didn't feel safe or loved in the way the trip was handled, and that I would be dropping his things off at his place and leaving his keys with the neighbor. He called, but I didn't leave any messages, and then he messaged me that he didn't understand. The rest of the week, he called and messaged me, but I couldn't bring myself to pick up or text back. On Thursday, I think that he realized that I was serious, and he asked me some questions about logistical things. I told him which neighbor his key was with, etc. When he got back and saw all his things at his place, he got pretty frantic and called and left me a long message. I was working all day, but also I still didn't want to respond. He asked me to explain because he didn't understand what was going on. The next day, I sent another text making it clear that it was over, and he got upset and sent me a bunch of texts in a row about how he didn't understand why I was throwing away everything that we built. He left me a voicemail that was really angry, that said he had no idea why I was upset, and that he did not accept the breakup because he had no say in it, and that he wanted me to tell him the evil story that I had made up about him to his face. I wasn't going to respond to him, and I wanted to remain calm, but this upset me. So I sat down to write him this letter. It's long, so skip over if you want. I tried to call him, but I started crying and told him I'd just send him an email instead. This is what it said. The time that we have had apart has given me some good space and time to think. I have had a chance to think about the things that are important for me in a relationship, and I see that we should not be together. I am sorry that I have been asking for you to change things about your life that you shouldn't have to change at my or anyone's behest. From the very start, this trip was made in an insanely disrespectful way in which it started out from you being given an ultimatum by your female best friend, who I had never met, that either she goes or I go on this trip, and you picked her. You didn't offer to have her meet me. Theoretically, I was your long-term partner, so this would have made a lot of sense. You didn't encourage her to find someone else to come, and you didn't consult me at all. That's enough for most people to have a deal breaker right there. However, I stayed. This is a person who you have a history with that is not entirely clear to me. Here is what I understand. Some bad rumors got started about the two of you in which you spent an entire night out with her on an acid trip while you were dating someone else. Nothing happened. The other thing I understand is that you were interested in her romantically at some, theoretically other, point, and that she started dating her boyfriend, and that closed the door on things for you. According to what I also understand, it took a long time for 29 females' boyfriend to feel comfortable with you being around, but you apparently worked to ultimately make him feel comfortable with you after I'm not sure how long. This is the completely unknown person who shut me out of a trip that I was originally going to go on. Unilateral decision. You did not tell me this was happening until I asked when the trip to Hawaii would be. You purchased tickets in another very disrespectful situation in which I have cooked dinner and have guests present, and you choose to go into my room for well over an hour to select tickets with her, and in which I repeatedly ask you to please come to dinner because you say it will just be a few more minutes each time. There is absolutely no reason for doing it at that time and in that situation, seeing as how she is in the same time zone as us and has a 9 to 5 p.m. job. This makes me feel sick to my stomach, So, to make myself feel better about this whole arrangement, I tell you that I want to meet this person. On my request, we arrange a trip to go meet her and her boyfriend, a brief trip, in which they are, and you explicitly agree, inexplicably cold. The first conversation that we have is one in which 29 female and her boyfriend argue about how she messaged him while he was already in a relationship and got him to date her instead. You tell me about conversations that 29 female has had with you recently, in which it seems implied that there is some real instability in their long-term relationship, stuff about kids and dogs. I have a discussion, in which I let you know that I see that and that it worries me. Meanwhile, I am still wanting all of this to work out for you and for me and for her. I, at this point, am planning on being with you for the long term, and see no benefit in telling you to not go on a trip with your best friend. I want it to work out, but each and every interaction surrounding this trip chips and chips away at my ability to handle it. The conversations that seem to go nowhere, etc. Your dad, your mom, and your grandparents are all very surprised when we tell them about this trip. It is becoming very obvious that this is a dangerous trip to make with the fragility of our relationship. 29 male, we had only been together for 9 months. How long did it take before 29 female's boyfriend was comfortable with you hanging around? Much less going on a one-on-one international tropical vacation, in which he was uninvited because of your request. We go over it with at the rock climbing gym. We go over it in the car. We go over it while we're booking our airman for Copenhagen. We go over it when I tell you that I still feel uncomfortable, and I do not feel good about the trip. Talk about repeatedly saying something. Although I ask for you to help me, you actually ask me instead to come up with what would make me feel better. Surprisingly, I have no ideas either. Ultimately, it appears that the original plan to meet at my place and hang out and do a game night before you two go on the trip has been cancelled, and 29 female will be staying at my place, but not hanging out with us at all beforehand. You attribute it to you not bringing it up with her early enough. This is apparently not something that was discussed even 2 nights before the trip. This upsets me. You do not know what to do. I don't blame you at this point, it was well out of hand. I don't know what to do either. There is no good solution that I can think of besides waiting for the trip to be over. I tell you that either I have to get over it, or I have to break up with you, and that I don't want to break up with you. But my ability to get over it is rather worn down. She arrives at my place very late, and we wake up the next morning for me to take the 2 of you to the airport. After all of this lead up, I know that you can tell how unhappy I am. I fully absolutely know you can tell how unhappy I am. You leave, and when I don't respond to your text messages, you text me to tell me that you hope I'm okay, and you're going to bed. No call. The rest of the week was rough. My text to you was met with, essentially, I'm sorry you feel this way. You tell me that I'm being unfair. There is no acknowledgement, and there still has been none that this trip to a honeymoon destination, as we have discussed before, could be a crazy and horrible thing to go through with, even with my quasi-blessing. This is not something that people in relationships have to deal with. This is not something that people in relationships do, besides 29 female, I guess. In the end, all of this is to say that I have felt serious emotional needs go seriously unmet in a way that is a deal breaker for me. There have been some wonderful, very positive times, but there has been an unnecessary amount of heartache and suffering for me over things that come down to what I can only assume are personal differences. I cannot handle your relationship with 29 female, and I suppose I could ask you to pick between her and me, but that's not what I want to do. I want you to have your best friend, and I want to leave. I did love you, but I am not about to fight this fight, and here you tell me that I'm crazy for not seeing how totally platonic everything is for the rest of my life. It seems like trying to convince someone to like different food, or to have a different favorite color. I am not happy in this, and I do not want to feel these feelings any longer. There is no need for this to be mutual. I do not need your permission to break up with you. He wrote me back an apologetic email, in which he accepted responsibility for most things without any argument, except he denied anything that had to do with his relationship with her making me feel uncomfortable, and he denied that I would not be able to handle their relationship. He said that the only thing that made their trip bad for me was my own perspective. I wrote him back that trust has to be built, and that he put too much strain too early on a relationship, in which we had not developed that trust. He agreed and apologized. For me, it ended on a pretty amicable note. But this style of relationship really doesn't work for me, and I don't feel like his responses to me really healed or changed anything significantly. I stand by my decision at this point. So he pretends to not understand why she's upset, doesn't accept her breakup, doesn't accept the fact that the other friend is the cause of the breakup, and would be the cause of strain in her relationship if she continued to date. I don't believe this guy is dumb. He's playing dumb so she will stay with him. He's pretending to deny his friend isn't impacting his relationship, and he is trying to deny he has no feelings for her, but his actions say otherwise. She doesn't need these people in her life.